Thunder rolled in the valley, and in the darkness, carried on the wind, was the sound of crying, sweeping through the trees. This is the tale of Frau Perchta, the Christmas witch. And when you know her story, you will never forget her. The wind was howling through the snow-covered pines, and the candlelight flickered by the side of his bed. Hans woke to the sound of scratching across the wooden door. He sat up in bed, listening, hoping it was the sound of a wild animal. But the scratching stopped. This was his first Christmas alone. 20-year-old Hans had moved to the area 10 months ago, hoping to make something of himself, find a wife, and have some children. He was a little ashamed of himself and embarrassed that he was so jumpy. But Hans listened hard, waiting for a sound. Anything. But on hearing nothing but silence, Hans pulled up the blanket, up to his chin, and started to snuggle back into bed. But suddenly, there was a noise outside. A sound that was carried on the wind. It sounded like infants crying. Then panic rose. He heard scratching and scrabbling on the roof. He heard it scurry around, moving towards the chimney. And then silence. What was that? Hans muttered, staring into the darkness of the room. Then the house echoed the sound of what seemed like a sack falling down the chimney to the floor below. Hans stopped breathing. His heart was in his chest, almost pounding out of his ears. He heard things moving below. Bowls, plates, things he had forgot to clean away and had been left out, were being knocked to the floor. And then they rang out with a smash. The sound of sharp talons slowly scratching on wood, as whatever it was made its way through the house to the bottom of the stairs. As soon as the first stair let out a groan with the weight of something, Hans darted out of bed and slammed his back into the door, pressing against it with all his weight. So scared, he was struggling to breathe as he heard the slow, deliberate footsteps climbing up the stairs towards him, dragging the talons up the wall. He felt weight against the door. He pushed with everything he had. No matter what he did, the door gradually slid open, pushing him across the floor. Hans jumped up and dived into his bed, hiding under the blankets. Then, all of a sudden, he was pinned. He couldn't move. It's like his body was lead. His hands and legs just wouldn't respond. Then the blanket was ripped away, and the face of a haggard old witch dressed in tattered rags was inches from his. Her skin was grey and sagging, her teeth filed sharp. She was sitting on his chest, leant forward. She whispered in his ear. He screamed and screamed, but the cries in the wind hid every sound he made. The next day, the village awoke and got to their daily tasks. It was noticed that Hans was not being seen. Seeing his door was open, a group of villagers entered his house, and upon walking up the wooden stairs, found his lifeless body still in bed. Pulling back his bed sheets, they saw a line of stitches running down his chest. Later, when they were getting him ready to be buried, they discovered his body had been emptied and had been packed with rocks and straw. Well, that'll do it, but to let you know, Frau Perchta goes by many names, and is thought to be linked with the Scandinavian goddess Frigg, as both of them share the obsession with spinning and domestic neatness. The legend states that you'd better get all your flax spun by the 12th night, which would be January the 6th, because when the Christmas season is over, it was time to set up a large upright loom to weave all the thread that you were supposed to have been making. And for all those lazy ladies who hadn't finished all their weaving by this time, well, in Germany, Austria and Switzerland, Frau Perchta is said to trample and set fire to the half-spun fibres. And if your flax is not spun and your house is a total mess, then there is only one thing that can save you. You must leave out a traditional bowl of porridge oats and herring for her. But if you forget to do this, well then, her rampaging will extend far beyond the spinning room and the messy house. She will steal into your bedroom when the night is darkest, and with a long sharp knife she keeps hidden in the dress she wears made out of rags, she will cut you down the middle, disembowel you, and replace your insides with rocks and straw. She will then sew you back together, leaving before dawn. Her name, what she wears, eats, may change in the different locations of the story's telling, but the end is always the same for the individual who hasn't finished their chores and cleaned the house. But Perchta was once a powerful goddess, dressed in white robes, and was often prayed to in a time of need. So, now you might think, how did a goddess diminish into a violent hag obsessed with domestic chores? Well, the answer to that simply is the Church. The Church condemned the practice of worshipping pagan gods. The clergy waged an ugly propaganda war against the goddess for centuries. But by demonising and vilifying her, to get her followers to abandon her, that has kept her story alive. This ancient winter goddess, like many other folk characters, including Krampus and Gryla, live on as villains waiting in the dark. Also, on the darkest nights of the year, she is said to lead an entourage of women at the head of the wild hunt. Accompanied by screeching demons, they fly on distaffs, wooden sticks used traditionally in wool spinning, that look very much like brooms. She is trailed by the spirits of unbaptized children, the smallest dragging a pitcher filled with mother's tears. Seeing the wild hunt was thought to forebode some catastrophe such as a war or plague. People encountering the hunt would also die or might be abducted to the underworld or fairy kingdom. So, this January the 6th, tell your kids they better clean their rooms, and make sure your spinning is done and your house is clean, or Frau Perchta may come and pay you a visit in the dead of night. I hope you enjoyed this last story of the year. I just wanted to say thank you for all the support, listening to my stories and getting me over 1,000 subscribers. It means a lot that so many of you listen to my stories every week. So whatever you do this evening, take care and have a very happy new year. Thank you.